Hey everyone, it's 2025 and we're back with some more tutorials. And as you all know, I'm Sven Ryla, and today I've got with me
Tanmay.
one of our EJBCA developers who does a lot of work with the containerization of EJBCA and the Helm chart. Today we want to jump into what EJBCA deployment looks like with Helm and a multi-region deployment. Why don't we jump into the architecture, Tamoy, about a little bit the pieces and components involved. So let's go through that and tell us what we're seeing here on this diagram.
So before jumping into multi-region or like role separations, for an example, CRFEA, let's keep these things simple. Let's talk about how one Helm installation or deployment looks like with multiple EJBCA instances. In this diagram, we are trying to show you guys that how EJBCA CA can be deployed with two instances. So it is communicating with a replicated database, which can be inside the Kubernetes cluster or can be any cloud provider managed databases, for an example. Then it is also communicating with an replicated HSM setup or HSM cluster. The communication with this HSM cluster is managed with our enterprise offering P11NG sidecar. You might be already aware of, we already support Luna 7, Thales Enshield, and Utimaco, and many more are on the way. Then, of course, the EJBCA Enterprise as a container itself, and the TLS communication with this is managed by one of the sidecars, Nginx or the Apache HTTP. Whichever you prefer, you can use that one. And as for cluster external access, you can use load balancer, which is recommended. Alternatively, you can always use ingress too.
Yeah. I think the important point to note there is that if you do want TLS terminated in pod, you definitely want to go the load balancer route with the Nginx or Apache termination of the TLS there.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop into what does the deployment look like in a high availability region now? What do we have here on this diagram, Tamoy?
Yeah. So the rule of the game is high availability. So of course we are going for multiple instances for the CAs, VAs, and the RAs.
So we've got the role separation here now where we've got CAs, the VA clusters, and RA cluster. So everything's separated.
Yes. And we recommend at least deploy the CAs and the peers in separate namespaces, because that allows you for some security constraints Kubernetes automatically puts in, and also later on it will allow you to like create some things like network policies in a more convenient way.
So what's involved now with how many instances do I need?
So at least 2 instances, and for the CA you need replicated database and also HSM in clustered setup or the replicated HSM. At the end of the day, cryptographic keys, for an example, one of the CA using the same keys both from this EJBCA instance in CA00 or CA01. So you need replicated setup. And on the other hand, for the peers, in the VS and the RAs, you for at least for the VS, you do not need replicated HSM, but you can always use that. And you definitely want standalone databases. This is for high availability, so if the VA01 goes down, CS are still connected to VA00 and CS are kind of waiting for the VA01 to come back up so that the operation returns back
to normal. So we have full fault tolerance, in other words. That way you're not completely down if there's a database issue. Yes. You know, makes upgrades easier, makes everything just better. Keep the database separate. Yes. What about the RAs?
Yes. On the other hand, RA is much more simpler. It needs a very lightweight database. You do not have to worry about how much storage and replication and such like that. And most of the cases, it does not even need an HSM. So you want multiple replicas of the RAs running in each region, but you can let the other things like go.
We see all these purple dashed lines around that. What does this mean?
So at the end of the day, after all these theoretical things, you want this thing to be deployed, and that is why this Helm chart comes into the picture.
Ah, okay, so each one of these boxes is a Helm chart?
Yeah.
Or a Helm chart deployment.
Yes.
There we go.
So it is really convenient for the CA, because let's face it, that's where you have to do most of the thinking, so at least we made that thing easier for you guys. So make one Helm deployment in each region. You have multiple CA instances, which can be also auto-scaled, and you are good to go. On the other hand, for the VAs and the RAs, you have to think about a little bit. So for the VAs, we recommend at least 2 installations in each region. Each of these installations can be auto-scaled though. So for an example, VA00 can be auto-scaled into 2 EJBCA instances based on the configuration you are putting in. On the other hand, for the RAs, we recommend at least 2 installations once again, but auto-scaling on this front, it's not that important because it's a very lightweight proxy sitting in front of CA. So you just install or deploy with Helm chart 2 instances and you are basically good to go.
And that's more of a resource scale where you'd want just CPU or memory if needed, but like you said, it's pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
All right, then obviously we get into how does this connect? It uses our peer connection. So why don't you walk us through how that works with the VA?
Yeah. So for the VA, keep in mind that with validation authority, what we often try to do is get an OCSP response. I mean, is the certificate valid or not, or communicate with it so that we can fetch the CRL, the most recent CRL. So to ensure all the certificates are available across all the VAs, keep in mind that once more, each VA is using their own database. We use peer connection to connect to each of the VAs. So each CA, for an example, in this diagram, we are showing just CA00, but on the other hand, CAs in the other regions too are connected to each of these VAs. And also CA01 is connected to each of these VAs.
A hub and spoke.
Yes.
Where the CAs are the hub and all the VAs are the spokes. You get this big mesh.
Yeah. Another thing over here to note, like it is not that inconvenient actually, because like you can have multiple regions and multiple CS and it can give you a headache. So keep in mind that CS are using replicated database. So once you connect CS00 to all these 4 VAs, CS01 also receives the same communication and it automatically connects to the same VAs. But on the other hand, if you are going for the second region, so for an example region 1 in this case, you have to set up the same thing for the CA10 and CA11 follows.
Because they have separate database.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now, how about we hop into what that looks like for the RA?
Yeah. For the array, it is the same thing. You connect to each of these arrays. So another peer connection to the RA00 and RA01 from CA00, and CA01 automatically follows the same thing. And then another same steps for this CA10, and the region 1 is also connected to these arrays in the another region. So once again, to summarize, the CS in each region is cross-connected to the region in the region 1 like that. So if one of the region goes down, it is automatically communicating to the another region. So if CS in region 0 goes down, VS in region 0 or the RS in region 0 can always communicate to the CS deployed in region 1 and vice versa.
And that wraps up our little overview of doing a high availability deployment with EJBCA using our Helm chart and the EJBCA enterprise version of the container where you got the HSM sidecar. All right, guys, see you in the next tutorial.